We're live? Oh, good. Morning, everybody. We'll call the public hearing to order. And it's single item, consideration of village secondary planning strategy and land use bylaw amendment to add permission for one residential unit in the institutional area and the institutional zone specific to the lands known as Maple Cottage, 75 Regent Street. So, you're satisfied, Mr. Lamy, this is properly before council?
Yes, I am, Mr. Ward.
Thank you. Presentation, overview by the planner.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
So we've had this in front of you a few times. The Maple Cottage on the Lordley House property is looking to add a rental unit. So amendments to the policies and zoning were necessary. Now there's a unit proposed on the main floor, approximately 550 square feet. And there would be museum use continued in the upstairs and the basement. There's existing municipal sewer and private water, and the heritage character is not changed. There doesn't appear to be any land use conflict created by adding this small residential unit. There was a public information meeting on December 4th. There was no one in attendance for that, and we haven't received any other public comments on the matter. There was a Village Planning Advisory Committee meeting on January 14th. They recommended moving forward, but without having a maximum square floor area. And on February 13th, council decided to move ahead without the square footage limit. As far as the amendments go, there's a new preamble and a new policy in section 3.5 of the village secondary planning strategy, and then also a new permitted use specific for this property in the land use bylaw section 8.2.1C. And then just lastly, the village plan has already been drafted to include similar permission for this. So there's a public hearing report attached to the package that goes through the two motions, 2024-519 and 2025-089. Everything seems to be in order there. The nature of the amendments, the proposal of the amendments has already been covered, and the meeting dates are in there as well. So is there any questions or comments?
It's one of the simpler ones we've dealt with in a little while. So I don't know if the developer has any interest in saying any more. No.
I think Paul's covered it pretty well.
Yeah. Any comments from the public? No. Well, people, there are two motions. Is anybody prepared to move them?
I'll move that we recommend the first option to give first reading.
Seconder?
Second reading.
Second me. Second. Okay, moved and seconded. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. That's the end of it.
Yep.
Motion to adjourn?
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Seconded?
I'll second.
Okay. Tommy made it and Clarissa seconded it. And any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Good. Thank you. Okay, so we'll move on to council. That's not quite so straightforward. A little bit more to the package. So we'll start with, we respectfully acknowledge that we live and work in Mi'kma'ki as the steward of the ancestral territory of the Mi'kmaq people. We are all treaty people. The approval of the agenda and order of business, we have an in-camera item to add, Shoreham Emergency Access License. And the rest of it is already printed off? The other changes? Yeah, okay.
I would only add that I should afterwards about the Region 6 meeting that I attended and under committee reports.
Okay. Anybody else have any changes? Not, somebody will move the approval of the agenda as amended? Moved by Clarissa. Seconded by Sharon. Discussion, all those in favor? Opposed, motion's carried. Okay. Public input. Is there any, okay, come on up. And of course, your name, civic address, you know.
Know the drill.
Yeah.
It's on. Thank you. Sarah Philby, 3 Pleasant Street, Chester. I am here today to express my sadness as to the recent failure of council to implement the lakeside zone for Spectacle Lake and to put my reasons on the record. I was unable to attend the February 12th public hearing because I was out of town. However, I was at the October 10th public hearing on the protected watershed zone last fall. That hearing was well attended by Spectacle Lake landowners, several of them asking council to remove watershed protection from Spectacle Lake so that they could build homes for their families. Also present were many from the village asking council not to remove watershed protection because of their concern that no alternative potable water source had been identified. While staff had stated that Spectacle Lake is not a viable source, many of us are not convinced that enough data was collected to make that determination. Many wonder why council felt it necessary to remove this protection before an alternate water source was found, which I had understood was the previous commitment of council. Indeed, on October 12, 2023, at a meeting, it was stated by one councillor that it would be negligent to remove protection from Spectacle Lake before an alternate potable water source was identified. As you have heard many times, water is a huge issue across the municipality, and as the Dry Wells report demonstrates, particularly in the village where small lot sizes and density make solutions available elsewhere not possible. Lack of safe potable water kills communities. New potable water supplies are hard to find, take time, and the drilling of test wells is expensive. I was the final speaker at the October 10th public hearing and spoke about how encouraged I was by what I thought I had witnessed, a mutual recognition of the concerns of others and an attempt by council to address them. This was well expressed by a village resident who said that we were all talking about the importance of families. Spectacle Lake watershed owners expressed a desire to build homes for their families, and village residents expressed a desire for a safe water supply for theirs. Warden Weber spoke to the importance of addressing both concerns. Andre Vino proposed a way to do so, suggesting that obtaining provincial protection for the lake itself and the implementation of the lakeside zone would work to protect a possible future drinking water supply in place of the protected watershed zone. The Chief Administrative Officer supported this proposal, indicating to Council that it could preserve Spectacle Lake as a future potable water supply. Unfortunately, it appears I was naive. With hindsight, I now wonder whether the original proposal of implementing the lakeside zone was merely a device to get watershed protection removed, with no intention of replacing it with any protection. I now understand that the other option proposed, that of provincial protection via a protected water area designation, is only granted to an existing public water utility, which would be responsible for enforcing it. I was unable to attend the February 12th public hearing to consider the lakeside zone. I believed, as did others, that our concerns had been heard and that Council was genuine in supporting a middle road. Instead, I understand that Council decided to jettison implementation of the lakeside zone. The minutes show the change was led by Andre Vino, despite his having been the one to suggest this approach in the first place. I now understand that when the municipal PAC had originally suggested it, he had been strongly opposed. Further, I am aware that he has declared a conflict of interest relating to a subdivision in that area and that his own property serves as an access road. In this municipality, we face significant issues, among them lack of affordable housing, limited employment opportunities, income disparity, poverty, homelessness, inadequate safe water supply, environmental pressures, and an endangered coastline, not to mention the issues now facing us as a democracy and a country. These challenges affect all of us, and we will have no chance of meeting them if we can't work together to achieve genuine compromise. For me, what happened with Spectacle Lake was a serious breaking of trust. I wish we could find a way for us to come together versus this persistent and highly damaging us versus them dynamic that poisons our relationships and ultimately serves no one's interests. However, decisions such as this, one, demonstrate a disinterest on the part of staff and council in compromise and exploration of mutual interests and sets the wider community back, reinforcing the divides that will prevent us from working together for a healthy and prosperous municipality for all. Thank you for listening. And I
Thank you
have
for
a
your
copy here.
comments. Thank you. Provide that. Anyone else for the public input? Oh, Carol?
Carol Noss, 80 Main Street. I'm here because I sit on the advisory committee for Heritage. And at the present time, the mandate of that committee is very limited. It says that we're looking at houses that are plaqued or not plaqued, and maybe should be plaqued, and so forth. And that's as far as it goes. Now, history, and that is not just houses. It includes stories, it includes genealogy, it includes the houses. It includes the people's stories and information and what's happened here. We keep an archive, and we keep information as best we can on all the areas of the municipality. The ones that we're lacking, of course, New Ross does their own. So, and we have a back and forth. If they need something we have, they share, we share. There are areas of the municipality that haven't been tapped, if you will, through lack of interest, I think, by the people that are involved. I'm not sure. Anyway, so what I think should be done is that you should look at the mandate of that committee and actually make it a heritage advisory committee, if you would. It isn't now, not really, when all you focus on is the houses. That's not enough, not really. And those are changing rapidly, of course, as we know, as people buy in and it changes. So, I mean, the job of looking at plaqued and unplaqued properties is not an arduous one. I've been on that committee for 3 years, I think it is now. We've dealt with one.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're paying to have 3 people or 4 sit at a table at $60 a shot and look at a piece of paper and say, yeah, it does, or no, it doesn't, or we don't know, they don't want to, and then we say goodbye. So, I mean, it's a quick $60, I'll say that for it. You know, 15 minutes, 20 at the most. So that's just an ask, kind of, that we, at least if this committee looks at it or somebody looks at it, that you look at it becoming
A
a broader base for the municipality, so that you can say, okay, we have information, we hold the information from Blanford. We hold the information as much as we can collect from the other areas of the municipality. So who knows that? You know, so anyway, that's just kind of a heads up, if you will. And I'm not sure that that's something that council wants to get into, but I mean, there are a lot of people looking for information about their genealogy, about houses, about people. I mean, I've been asked questions like, were the 7, how many public wells were there? What do I know about the golf course? What do I know about, you know, this, that, and something else? So, I mean, it'd be better if more people knew.
Yeah, I don't think it would do us any harm to expand the scope of work that they do.
Anyway, that's just my thought, and the only other thing I'm going to say is that we're going to do tours of what we call Heritage Corner, and if council doesn't have any objection, we would like to title that Heritage Corner. We're not asking you to designate it as anything. We just want to know, is it okay to use that terminology?
I don't have any problem.
No? Okay.
Sounds like we don't have a problem. Tina?
Thank you. I know that under public input, it's not a back and forth, but I have to say, I have a much better appreciation, I'm admitting this publicly, much better appreciation of the New Ross Historical Society each time you come in, because I know that we are very fortunate in New Ross. Anything that I want to know for the last 207 years, I can find out. We have a very active, dedicated, quite a large number of people that sit on the Heritage Committee in New Ross. So I think it's sad if we don't in other areas or all areas. So, and I appreciate, and I know they do the back and forth, as you say.
Yeah.
From the Chester Municipal, because it is a municipal.
Yeah.
Heritage Society and the New Ross. So I think it's important.
Thank you. Always nice to
Della?
have.
Yeah,
nice to report.
Carol, and I just think it would be helpful too, because what you'd like to see in the mandate, maybe you could submit it, or, because
Well,
that would be the, you know, you have a lot of insight into this and what you'd like to see, instead of us trying to broaden the scope, and we really don't know what that
Yeah,
scope would be.
well,
but-
I'm more than willing, and so is that committee,
Okay.
to pull something together that we feel would be
Yeah.
appropriate for this type
Okay.
of a committee.
Thank you.
And I think that that's part of it. If we have council support, it helps. But I mean, you still need the people who are willing to talk. And that's one of the things that we're doing, or hoping to do this year, is to hit into areas that we don't have as much information about, so that we can start to pull that together as well. And Bella's section would be one.
Yeah.
I'm getting old enough, I might be able to give you some information.
Well, that's fine. You just have to sit and talk with us.
Yeah. He'll be on your agenda soon.
Anyway, thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Anyone else wish to address council before we move on? Okay. Minutes of the previous meeting, council, February 27th. Errors or omissions? Moved by Councillor Church, seconded by
Second that motion.
Abdella. Discussion, all those in favor? Opposed, motion's carried. Proclamations and designate, I'm not aware of any, no? Okay, committee reports, mayors and wardens, and I don't have the agenda, that's all right, I think I remember a lot of it. I know that we discussed at that meeting, we had to make some appointments to the EDI committees, so we had presentations from Ellen and Jem. Yeah, and we did make those appointments. I don't remember the names, but they'll be coming forward to council. We also had a fairly significant discussion on Remo and where we go and how we move forward with Remo, and I don't want to get into ruining you're going to speak to that later, right? Yeah, but anyway, we gave direction to staff to try to come up with something that would work for all of us. And, yeah, and we had a Remo meeting yesterday, so you'll know better what that is coming up. We also had a brief discussion on the potential of trying to come up with some sort of a plan for working together on regional economic development. We came to no real conclusion on that, other than it was just a broad discussion. We had a very brief discussion on the whole tariff business and whether or not municipalities would be taking any action individually or collectively on whether or not to do anything with the contracts we have with other partners, other people besides Canada. I think that that's something that we will have a discussion about. I mean, you hear it on the news. I don't even want to hardly talk tariffs anymore because I'm sick of it. But Yeah, there are a variety of municipalities who are taking the approach that they aren't awarding contracts to American companies. We all know that the province isn't, in some cases. Just yesterday, they didn't do it in Nova Scotia, so, that's a discussion that we did have there. And I think that pretty much covers most of what was.
Basically, and the only other thing we're, what the other councils and towns are doing is for strategic priorities and things like that. And we're basically all the
Yeah,
same.
yeah.
Infrastructure and,
Yeah,
It's
a broad general.
General stuff, the town of Lunenburg, they've got a lot of expense with their electrical grid, and they're talking about maybe selling it, or, just preliminary stuff, but that's basically what was,
Yeah.
went around the table. But actually, the mayor of Model brought up I'll say Ren, but as Tina used to know it as, but just brought that as a broader discussion, which I found interesting, actually, because it was before my time, right? So, because I learned that there are Rens in the province. I just thought they were just completely gone. So they talked about some successful ones, and so anyway, yeah, it was eye-opener for me, yeah. Yep, that's it.
Anyway, okay, so South Shore Public Libraries?
Thank you.
Yep.
So we have been meeting regularly, at least once a month, and maybe more frequent than that, most especially because we, are in budget deliberation times. So not so great news would be the fact, for those that are following along in terms of the provincial formula, that the libraries in Nova Scotia, and we had also been anticipating here at this table, because if you remember during our budget deliberations, we upped our ante a couple of years ago in recognition of the fact, or anticipation that this was going to happen with the province. So our commitment is still the same, if you will, but unfortunately, the province has not agreed to that as of yet. And I will say as of yet, because the funding formula subcommittee around the province of library boards is not giving up. So we'll just leave it at that. So the province did not approve the new funding formula, and that's really a bit of a kick. So we had to go back and further deliberate our budget. So the marketing term that we had identified I had identified, that's one of the cuts that we made. So obviously that was going to be a new hire, and we're not doing that new hire. So if anybody would like to talk more detail about the budget, I have the pages here in front of me, not right this second, but if anyone wants to talk at any time. So let's move on to good news. So we did approve our budget, and we are doing okay. It's not a bad budget at all. We did have bridge financing last year from the province to get us to this year. We don't have a commitment for that bridge financing, but we're okay, We've approved it. Staff are still intact, the services. We've actually introduced some new projects too with the library, so it's all good. Another piece of exciting news is, and I believe that we are a regional library, a regional board, and the new Liverpool Library is going to have its official opening the first Saturday in April. So it's very exciting. So leave it with that. Good news.
Okay, questions?
Yeah, I'd just like, Tina, the funding formula for the province, are they looking to get rid of the funding at all of it, or just rework it? So how much do they contribute? I'm sure it's a lot.
That's a question I'm not even gonna try to guess.
Okay, no, that's okay.
Because then I'd probably make a mistake.
No, that's okay,
It's not
yeah.
a secret, it's public.
No.
But we've always been in a healthy situation, formula here in South Shore because of municipal units. For example, in Lunenburg, Lunenburg up their contribution with the fact that they and we also agreed to it, wanted Sunday hours at the library there. So they took that, they carved off that piece, town of Lunenburg, and they're sponsoring that. So again, we've taken bits and pieces here within the South Shore region. We have the bookmobile,
Yeah.
and so we don't have a bricks and mortar. So we didn't necessarily up our ante, but it's it's a very healthy contribution. But some of the libraries, regional libraries, aren't doing so well.
Not bad.
Yeah, they've had to cut hours. I won't say they've had to cut staff, because that, yeah, but they have, so we're doing okay.
Yeah.
But the province, in my one opinion, my thought, is not doing the right thing.
No, absolutely.
So it wasn't in the budget this year, which was a big disappointment.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay. Do you want to do the Remo one now, Andre? Yeah? Yeah.
Yeah, so, as council is aware, the REMAC Advisory Committee had been sort of discussing how to staff our emergency coordination service into the future, because there's a recognition that it has been understaffed and we're confronted with all kinds of emergencies, and I think we're feeling a bit ill-equipped. So the two options, as you recall, just by way of review, it was an option presented that we would add, simply add a staff to the existing REMO organization. They would report to the existing manager of REMO, who's our sole employee at this point. And they would be both employees handled by the host unit Modal, so employees of Modal. And maybe they would be housed here, that's an option. And I think we had come back, as you recall, saying that, you know, we feel like even that doesn't align with the original discussion that was had two plus years ago, that there really isn't enough staff still, and a lot of the local preparedness initiatives weren't getting done, like especially in Chester. So we had proposed going back with one, like our REMO manager, and then Modal would hire their own staff to deal with local planning, pre-planning in Modal. We would hire our own here in Chester, and maybe the towns could split one amongst themselves. That was our proposal. And that was reviewed with councils of the 5 units, and mixed reaction, not really thrilled about that. And it sounded like, what I got from the discussion, that maybe it wasn't that they didn't think the idea was good, just maybe from a budgeting standpoint, it was a big change in costs, and maybe they would need a little time to grow into that. So there was a third option, as you recall, presented of adding sort of the original option 1, which is the other staff to Modal through REMO, and then us hiring our own person, and then selling back 30% of their time back for those regional activities. And, you know, then we would have a 70% of that person's time to do that local work. It's a good option, you know. It would allow, if we hope to eventually get to our desired option 2, which is each one with their own. Modal would already have 2 employees. They would have the manager and the other person. We would already have our person, so then it would just become the towns basically ponying up enough to finally get that third person, and then we would kind of be where we want to be in the end. So good maybe interim step, and it doesn't close the idea. I think I've expressed a concern before that we were sort of building an agency, and I've felt personally, and I think others at this table maybe have felt, that sometimes when we do these regional enterprises, nobody really feels like they truly own it. When we create a big agency with all kinds of staff, then you can lose control of that. So it's sometimes better, especially when you're a significant contributor like Chester is, to own some of that staff time ourselves, so we can really focus their efforts on our needs. It's a better service for our residents. So that was presented yesterday to the group, and there was a little bit of debate. It sounded like Mahone Bay and Lunenburg seemed like they were maybe on board for it. The other two, maybe. Hard to say where it's going to go, but it seems like there was some sort of acceptance that it could be. It's not a big cost adder compared with what they had all thought they were going to go with. So it was like, I think a very small addition to the option 1. So I'm cautiously optimistic that they'll come back and say, yeah, their councils are on board and we can move on, and then hopefully over this next year work towards doing something. And there's a lot of other sort of issues we have to discuss about, like when you're gonna activate, you know, who's bringing what resources, and like, there's just this sort of like, I think a lot of units have been just doing whatever it takes just to get the job done, but then, you know, that works great when everybody's bringing the same thing, but some have maybe taken advantage of the goodwill of others and that sort of thing, so. Anyways, I guess that's the update, that we don't really know what's gonna happen. Maybe over the next week or two, we'll probably find out how the others feel, and then we can get this budget passed.
It is worth noting that REMO itself, the advisory committee, did vote to support and recommend option 3 to their councils. And also to, over the course of the next year, to revisit the whole agreement we have with each other and see what needs to be changed to make it work better. Yeah. Okay, so we are now on to, oh, sorry.
So, no, I'd just like to say, to thank the CAOs of all the units that sort of came together
Yeah,
and
put
come
option
up
3
with this
together
option.
for us.
I think it was great. It's, you know, you're never gonna please anybody, but I got the feeling at the meeting that we'll have their support in most cases. I mean, some of the units were pushing back and others not so much.
They all voted for it at the end of the day,
Yeah,
Joan.
that's right.
Yeah. Okay. Pride Lunenburg County.
Do we wanna do the, Region 6 quick?
Oh, sorry.
It's a very short.
Okay, yeah.
They were meeting, I think, on Friday. And
Oh, yeah, okay.
the big topic was, you know, EPR, extended producer responsibility. It's gonna have an effect on how we handle waste, because now they somehow, are responsible. There's a number of options still available. I think there's a bit of uncertainty still. It was a very long discussion. I don't know, I feel ill-equipped in trying to explain it all. I think the best thing, with council's indulgence, that I would invite Christine to come in and maybe do an update on EPR for this council, maybe in the next quarter. And just, because I think it's gonna, especially where we have a landfill ourselves, there's an effect there. And other than that, it was just some educational videos and stuff they showed us, that some new stuff that they've been working on. If I had them, I'd circulate them. If I get them later, I'll circulate them. But that's it. I just wanted to give the committee update because I actually attended. So.
Okay. Come on up. Yeah.
I'm just gonna give you, take one and pass it down. This is for an activity, because we like to be engaging. Take one and pass it down. In case you folks want to participate. Thank you. I might look down a few times, just because I have notes. But thank you so much for having us. We will be doing this presentation in all 5 municipal units. It was based on a request from a person on a council in one of the 5 municipal units that we come in and do it for them. We decided we'd do it for everyone. And my name is Kay, and I'll do a little bit of an introduction here in a second. Before I begin, I want to have a land acknowledgement, but before I do that, these 2 slides are typically separated. Due to time, I've put them on one image, but they're very different topics. So to begin, we are doing this learning in Spaganagity district of Mi'kma'ki. It's one of the 7 districts in Mi'kma'ki. This territory is covered by the treaties of peace and friendship, which were signed by the Mi'kmaq, the Maliseet, and the Crown, that guided the relationship going forward. We are all treaty people, and my call to action as part of this land acknowledgement is that if you folks don't know of the 7 districts, to use some of the resources that you may have as part of this slide packet to do some learning about the 7 districts and the peace and friendship treaties.
Thank you.
The other piece is I want to recognize the over 50 founding historic African Nova Scotian communities in Nova Scotia. Since 1605 and the arrival of Matthew da Costa, African Nova Scotians have had a rich contribution and rich legacies to Mi'kma'ki and have often contributed to communities that they could not economically benefit from due to historic limitations. And so I just want to take a moment to recognize their contributions to Mi'kma'ki and to our communities here today. And the call to action with that is there are learning related to the migration and the 50 historic communities that are in those learning links. One other piece before we get into it is each of you have this little string. I want to take a moment to recognize we're all at different places with learning about pride. And even I am still doing some of that learning and unlearning, even as a member of that community. So as we go through, if you realize that you're needing to do some more learning, put a knot in your string. This will be your visual reminder of the learning that you're going to have to do to go forward to be a positive ally. The other note is that Q word. That Q word is the word queer. And when I say that, there's different interactions depending on who's in the space. I myself use that word to identify because it's currently being reclaimed by a younger generation that hasn't had the horrific experiences that our older population has experienced with that as a use of a slur. But it is starting to become used as a term to acknowledge the community and as an umbrella term, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But throughout this presentation, I will try to use the term gay as a replacement for that word. I do recognize that that is part of my linguistics and that language is always changing. So if I do say that word, it is because that is my identity, that is how the younger generation of the gay community is identifying, and just want to take a moment to recognize that before going forward. I also have an agenda there. I'm not going to speak to that too much, but that's sort of the topics we're going to go through. Before we get into all of the allyship, it's important to set the stage. The 2S LGBTQIA community, or the gay community, is a wonderful spectrum of identities and orientations. Before going into all of the other information and who I am, it's important to sort of ground us in what that acronym means and some of those identities. So the 2S is a word that means two-spirit. It is for Indigenous communities. It was coined as part of an Indigenous queer conference in Manitoba to help acknowledge that there was need for English word for all of the Indigenous populations, because there are words in different native languages that identify differences. So two-spirit was the one that was agreed upon. Lesbian comes before gay to honor those lesbian women who supported during the AIDS epidemic, who were nurses at the bedsides of gay men, and who also donated blood when Canada Blood Services had discriminatory blood practices. Gay, it used to be GBT, so gay comes next and is an original term to describe same-gender relationships. It is used by a variety of identities, gender identity folk, but it's often used for men who are attracted to other men. The B comes next, it comes before the creation of omni or pansexual, which we see today as describing the attraction to two or more genders. And it does not mean the only attraction to two in the binary, but again, it came before other language was available. Transgender refers to anybody whose gender does not align with that they are assigned at birth. Queer, as previously discussed, is a reclaimed term to describe broader community as an identity, but also same gender or other gender attraction. Intersex is an individual whose biological sex characteristics don't fit typical male or female binary categories. This identity makes up about 2% of the total population in Canada. A is asexual or aromantic, which is the little to no sexual or romantic attraction spectrum. And it's included in the larger acronym to recognize the erasure experience by asexual and aromantic people. The erasure, so the permanent or accidental removal of that identity from the community. The plus represents all other identities like omni and pansexual that I've mentioned, as there are various other identities I haven't mentioned in this acronym. And what you'll see on this image is there's arrows. So some of these identities are also what we consider umbrella terms. So those are both something that someone can use as their identity, but also a word that describes many other terms within the community. And just a note on cisgender, because I'm going to be using that throughout the rest. Cisgender refers to a person whose gender identity matches the sex they were assigned at birth. For example, someone who was assigned female at birth and who is now identifying as a woman, like myself, is a cisgendered human. So now we're going to talk about who I am, the current climate experiences, and intersectionality. As I speak about the current climate and lived experiences, I can only speak for my own personal lived experiences as a cisgendered queer woman in the South Shore. Not everybody shares the same lived experiences as myself or shares the same amount of safety or unsafety. It goes to this concept of intersectionality I'll talk about in a moment. When I moved back to Nova Scotia from the Yukon and Cape Breton, I was surprised about the progress made. I left, one of the reasons is because I didn't feel I could be my authentic self. And I didn't think I could be an out queer woman in the South Shore without receiving hate and discrimination. And I came back and I saw this community that was loved and cherished. My first year back, Lunenburg County Pride had their first Pride parade ever. I highlight this progress, but also recognize with the current climate, there's more progress that we have to make. And I'm aware that my feeling of safety and care when I move back to Bridgewater is not the same as where I am currently today. I will be transparent. I had to do a safety plan before doing these presentations, just in case there were people that decided to give me harassment and discrimination. I'm sorry for the voice quiver there, but the reality and the stress that we face daily related to hate incidents is quite extreme. One event that I attended in Bridgewater to stand against hate that happened last year, it was a person that in stealth took images of those attendees and posted it online to promote hate against us. Another example is from a Lunenburg County Pride community member who has consented to share this story. They are not part of the gay community, but they are an ally and they have someone who they really truly care about. For years, they received hate mail almost daily, highlighting homophobic and discriminatory language in their hate mail to their doorstep. They had people go to their neighbors campaigning and see their pride flag and turn away. I want to be abundantly clear. There are times, like I've mentioned, where I've genuinely been fearful in the South Shore about being targeted for hate crimes. And I'm extremely cautious about the spaces I enter. It's not about privacy, it's about ensuring safety. Every decision I make is about speaking my truth, but also ensuring myself and my community members are safe. And I also recognize that my experience is not one that everyone has. Like I said, we can go back to the other slide. Intersectionality is this concept that you're standing at a crosswalk and all of your identities are these roadways. So someone who has a different race or income or ability may have different roads that are intersecting with them, and they may be at more of a danger of getting hit by hate and discrimination, if that makes sense. When individuals make clear, loud, bold, discriminatory comments against our trans community, our queer communities, it emboldens hate. As you can tell, the journey towards full safety and visibility for the queer community in Nova Scotia is far from complete, which is why I'm here today. Kimberly Crenshaw's theory of intersectionality emphasizes that people's social and political identities exist somewhere in that spectrum. Even your identities exist in the roadway of intersectionality. So, highlighting local issues, as I've mentioned, I had to do some safety planning for this. There's a lot of discrimination and harassment happening today. Lunenburg County Pride has received hate mail. We've received discriminatory comments because our staunch protection of 2S LGBTQI people in the community. There's been defacing of pride flags in the South Shore. There's been hate symbols on public and private property and hate symbols in public spaces. We've had to do increased safety planning for events, including not having public promotion of events for drag performances for queer community, because we are making sure that our events are safe. Some folks have had to temporarily relocate due to safety concerns. Some folks have decided to leave social media because of harassment. And there's increased awareness about our day-to-day activities. I enter spaces and I don't wear this pin, and I go in stealth because it ensures my safety, because I can present cisgendered and straight when I need to. There's also bullying in schools. A 2022-2023 school year report that's public said that 51% of 2S LGBTQI students experience homophobia or transphobia in schools, and only 20% of those students felt like their schools responded adequately to the issues. This leads us to what allyship is and why we're here today. It's about using your power and privilege to support underserved or minority groups. As council members, you have immense power and privilege in the shaping of community. Being an ally means standing up for our rights and dignity, both in public and private spaces. Allyship is essential because it amplifies voices and experiences of marginalized individuals. And with the increasing challenges and social makeup of our current society, it's more important than ever. So what are your roles as allies? Advocating and uplifting voices. I am being an ally of my own community by being here today, amplifying some of those voices of folks that, for various reasons, will not be able to come to public spaces and put on public record their experiences. It means challenging harmful stereotypes, hearing those microaggressions and saying, not here. It means doing anti-discriminatory work to ensure policy and legal protections. You're doing that with Jem and with Ellen. And defending legal protections if there's ever a call for challenging those policies, standing firm on your commitment. And also fostering safe spaces and enhancing community well-being, ensuring that those policies aren't performative, following those policies, making sure they're implemented correctly. Being a good ally means listening to these stories. It means stopping and challenging discrimination. It means doing the learning, taking this knotted string and saying, I'm going to start untangle these knots. It means advocating for equity, taking that learning, asking and listening, what do you need to do, and using your role and your power to advocate for safety for individuals. And that will create safer spaces. And making sure when you're in spaces, if you hear discrimination, you're stopping it, because that creates safer spaces. And I also want to note that there are a lot of hurdles to becoming a good ally. And it's okay to trip and fall. It's important to get back up again. We're not looking for perfection. We're looking for effort, commitment, and progress. There's discomfort when challenging discrimination. Maybe you don't feel like you're going to say the right thing or you'll have the right language. That's okay. What's important is that you stop it, say, that's not appropriate. I know it's not appropriate. I'm not sure the details, but I'll go and do some learning. There's also ally fatigue, which means that there's an emotional toll that comes from continuously supporting the community. But staying committed is key, taking moments for wellness, and remembering that being an ally and being part of the community is hard. But that difficulty is what helps create folks' feeling of safety inclusion, so that there isn't the need for safety planning going to council to talk about being gay. Overcoming fear, like I said, not about perfection. It's the effort and the learning that's important. Continually educating yourself, actively challenging harmful behaviors, and providing consistent support over time is ways to sustain allyship. And it wouldn't be good for me today to come to you and talk about how to be an ally without giving you the resources. So we have some further learning. The suggested reading, if you are a reader and you are interested in learning about more of the how to be a good ally, I have some suggested reading provided by myself and by the folks at Venus Envy, who we connected with about good resources. Suggested listening as well, if you're a podcast person and you like to listen while you, for me, embroider. And then suggested watching. If you like to watch, those are short films by the Film Board of Canada. The first one is about being two-spirited and some of the challenges based on colonization that a two-spirited person had going to powwow. The second one is Into the Light. It's about being an ally to their trans child in the remote north. There's a lot of transferable knowledge there. The final one is from Nova Scotia. It's called I Am Skylar. It's about a trans girl and their experiences in Cape Breton. So I hope that you would take a few of those items and choose one to learn from after today. If you do like reading, my personal favorite on the reading is Hijab Butch Blues. It is about a non-binary Muslim woman who is a person of color and who is a newcomer to North America. And it is very sad, but it is very powerful. And I read it in 12 hours, and I usually take like 2 weeks to read books. So I know that I have some question time, and I tried to get through that very quick for you folks. So I know with time constraints, it wasn't as wholesome as another session could have been, but.
Okay, thank you for your presentation. Questions, people? Comment? Tina?
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Hello, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
So certainly as a member of the library board, as we all are, very proud, and I'm proud of the library for what they have done over the last number of years in terms of events.
Yeah.
Very much. They've not turned their back on what they should be doing in terms of, and it's a large space there in terms of ensuring safety,
Yes.
if you will, at the LCLC. So
Yeah.
it takes some coordination for sure. But in terms of the further learning, the suggested reading, listening,
Yeah.
and watching, what I'll do as well, and I'm sure it's probably on the shelves at the library.
I'm pretty sure all of these
Yeah,
are already
that's
on
what
the
I'm
shelves.
thinking, but I'll check in and make sure. And also too, I'm just gonna go into the library a little bit, but one thing that I was thrilled about that I didn't mention here was the fact, and you are probably aware of this, of the newest initiative, the Book Sanctuary Collection, which, in joining the Book Sanctuary movement, the Social Public Library aims to highlight the ongoing issue of book censorship and the importance of diverse perspectives in literature, foster conversations about the themes and topics that these challenged books address, so on and so on and so on. And it's in a really nice area of the library, and it's caution taped off, if you will, because it's very important, and in terms of making sure that people that should have access, but it's bringing back things that are important to not go by the wayside.
Yeah.
So, sorry, I
No,
kind of
that's
clouded
so
your
good.
discussion a little bit, but I think it's all part of the same.
Yeah.
It's so
the,
important.
The library is a great ally to our community. They, in the past, have done events during our Pride Week. They actively provide us letters of support when we're doing grants. And they also have a variety of resources for learning, which is really important. And they also firmly hold strong on ensuring that equity-based stories are told.
So just one more thing, plug for the MODC, of course, through the leadership of Jennifer, sitting to my right, and again, we don't need to say the same stuff that we all know, but very much, and I was in attendance, and it's just such a joyful experience. We have had a float or a truck, municipal presence in the last number of, since the beginning of the Pride parades in Bridgewater, so
Yeah, it's always been lovely to see.
Oh, yes, that's it, I'm done, sorry.
Okay, Clarissa?
Hi, thank you. I have 2 knots, means, right? I do live in a safe, I don't one time ever considered, and it really awakened me, that I'm gonna go to this event, I'm going here, I'm going there. Like, that really resonated with me, that you had to create some sort of a safety plan around your thought process and to be physically here.
Yeah.
You know, and there's my 1 knot. My second knot is 2% is intersect. I have to learn on that.
Yeah.
I didn't know nothing of that. So your presentation has been very resounding to me, and I really appreciate that you're here.
Yeah.
And thank you. Thank you very much. That was very enlightening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else, any particular questions, comments? Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Thanks,
Yeah.
folks.
Yeah.
Have a lovely rest of your council meeting.
We'll-
And we're always around if you have further questions or you want more information. We're an email away.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Marie Lonis.
Hey, thank you. I see you've got my presentation up there nicely. Thanks so much. Thank you for having me today. I'm just curious if any of you participated in our October 2024 webinar, and if that's what stimulated the interaction today. No?
I don't think I did, no.
In the fall, we had a wonderful webinar with, we invited in over 200 people from municipalities across all the regions of the Maritimes
Okay.
to encourage them, educate them, inspire them about our Shore Up program. And we had 86 people register, 56 stayed for the full 3 hours. So I think our numbers were pretty great there. And yeah, I was curious if any of you had been there. So Shore Up is a program of helping nature heal. I've actually stood here back in 2019 and done this presentation, a similar presentation for you. Anybody here from 2019?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Excellent. So you may recall some of these details. We've been working, first, does everyone know Helping Nature Heal? Yeah, some know. So in 2001, I started Helping Nature Heal out of Bridgewater. It is an ecological restoration company, woman-owned, and all of our primary folks within our hierarchy are female, which is really fun to work in a nurturing, caring kind of scenario where we're looking at ecosystem restoration as a hard scientific output of energy and intelligence to recreate ecosystems on our coastline. So that has been our mandate since the beginning of time, to enable people to continue to live in these very fragile ecosystems in a more succinct way, where they understand the climate change that is happening, their capacity to adapt, and then offer them tools and techniques and methodologies to do so, to continue to live in these coastal properties, which we know are eroding quite quickly. Recent data out of the IPCC says the Maritimes will be struck the hardest by our climate adaptation, or our climate changes, and we will need to enter an era of adaptation as opposed to defense and dominance over nature. So that looks a little bit different, right, than pursuing big concrete walls and things. This is more of a plant-based strategy which our federal government has actually acknowledged and are now supporting with funds rippling down through the province and into the municipalities. So I'm going to share with you some of our story and give you some of our data and results, as well as the communities that we currently are working in. If you could just go back one slide. We are quite specific on our scientific research. We work with several universities in this province as well as in Ontario to study our work, analyze our processes, and allow us to have good, clean science to stand up and be confident in spaces like this, where we are trying to encourage and inspire people to look at nature in a new lens. We are literally flipping the paradigm from traditional land management from a domination standpoint to one of adaptation, collective knowledge, and working at the hands-on level, so that people are learning skills and understanding how they can make small adaptations to their lifestyle, their way that they use the landscape, and stay on those lands for much longer. We have all sorts of accolades and all kinds of interesting programs and science going on, and you'll have this presentation to do some further work if you like. Okay, we'll hit the next one. So we are working with Lambton College in Sarnia, Ontario, where they are testing our abundance formulation, which is the biostimulant that we create at our office in Bridgewater. It's local seaweed from Mahone Bay and mycelium, a very specific recipe of myceliums, 18, which are the sort of combination of recipes that almost every plant in the Carolinian, the Boreal, and the Acadian forest will have a partnership with, so that they can be more efficient at latching on to the earth and hanging on for dear life. All these little root hairs and knitted together, this network, which then subsides that stressor and allows them to become more efficient at photosynthesizing and taking nutrients from the sun and the air. Thereby, these plants are literally growing for us to hang on to the ocean edges and hold the landscape together. It's really the plants that are holding the whole thing together, so we want to acknowledge that they too have rights and privileges and need to be fed well, taken care of, and not abused by our whippersnippers and lawnmowers and traditional styles of living in these spaces. Acadia University, of course, St. Mary's University, Eco-Canada, Green Shores, etc., are all validators and encouragers of our work. We can go to the next slide. Our work has been tested very specifically, the work that we do on steep slopes to slow down the rate of erosion. You can imagine a large slope is being pummeled by wind and wave energy, extreme storms, big splash up, and then of course that soil is dissolving as it liquefies and transports off the shore. We need erosion in order to have beaches and estuaries and wetlands, so we don't want to stop Mother Nature from doing her work. We want to slow it down so that we can continue to stay in these locations, perhaps make new decisions about where we place our homes and our infrastructure, and sometimes retreat. Getting out of the way is really the only solution to climate change. We dare not say that we are greater than Mother Nature and we can stop a hurricane, right? As we know, that's virtually impossible. Even the rock walls and the best revetments that we can engineer have damages based, after these big storms. So our work is demonstrating that we can slow down the loss of sediment on slopes to the tune of 98% when done in cooperation with engineering strategies, and in some places in low energy areas just with plants themselves. So there's a spectrum of work that we need to consider and think about in our communities. Everything from solid rock wall edges that beat back high energy. We need to integrate what we call hybrid strategies to allow the plants to continue to grow at the toe of the slope so those rocks don't get undermined and start to collapse our walls within the wall and above the wall. So when we have those storm surges and the water supersedes the effects of our walls, the plants can do some work for us. The above ground parts of the plants, of course, dissuade and buffer wind and wave energy. The root systems latch on, knit around the infrastructure of rock walls and the land itself, and help to hold and link it together for a much longer time frame. So we're literally growing our resilience to change by doing shoreline revegetation and remediation. We can go to the next slide. We've worked throughout the Maritimes, and what's missing here is our work in Quebec, especially the Magdalen Islands. We are working specifically with the municipalities there on all of their erosion management issues so that we can help them to slow down. Their rate of erosion is about 2 meters per year. So if your house is only 30 meters away, you don't have much time, right? We can literally do the math and let you know how much time you have if you're in a non-protected landscape, which can be up to 10 to 20 meters during, say, Hurricane Fiona. We had a property on the north side of PEI, one of those red dots, that lost 50 horizontal feet, including the front of their house. They were sleeping in the back bedrooms during Fiona, heard a train-like storm blow by, fell asleep, woke up in the morning, opened their bedroom door to find land. The entire front of their house, the kitchen, living room, dining room, had blown off, as did their entire piece of land. The waves are now lapping up at the base of their foundation. Typically, northern PEI kind of situation, we've seen dozens and dozens of homeowners lose almost everything from these spaces. In Newfoundland, of course, we've seen at least 5 people lose their lives because of storm systems like this that take their homes away while they're in bed, sound asleep. So there's a need for something different. There's a need for a new mindset from domination to collaboration. There's a need for engineers and contractors and folks like us who do plant-based strategies to work together to look at what are the best scenarios for our communities and our homeowners who live within our spaces. We are losing tens and potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars of tax money as our property owners realign their deeds and their surveys, and we notice that people are losing quite a bit of acreage on the shoreline. From a municipality perspective, you can't afford to lose that money. From real estate and mortgages, we can't afford to lose those businesses and those jobs. We need people to still enamor and be in awe of these oceanfront properties. That's what drags people here from all over the world. If we don't have those, if they're not safe for people to live in, then we're going to lose all of that potential economic growth as we move deeper and deeper into tourism and encouraging people to use our country as a safety net, especially when we see what's happening down south. We'll hit the next slide. So in about 2010, we started working with community organizations, NGOs, watershed organizations, etc., Parks Canada, provincial parks as well, to look at ecosystem restoration in the coastal zone, so from the toe of the slope all the way back to the ownership end of the land, to restore these ecosystems so that we can buy ourselves some more time, because we are also sinking, right? As a maritime community, we're dealing with subsidence, which is a rebound effect from the last glaciation. So we're not just experiencing extreme storms, we're also sinking millimeters a year, albeit, but the impact of that with sea level rise and aggressive storm surge, hardening of the upland, building houses, mowing, adding driveways, the overland flow rate is increasing, so our erosion rates are over the top, right? We're really losing more than we can trap and save at any one time. So these kinds of projects that we've been doing throughout the Maritimes help us to attend to those needs. It helps us to feel like we're being active and helping to build resilience and resolve some strategies. We work with communities to design and develop, as well as with Green Shores and engineers, to create the strategies that will work best for these different communities, these different scenarios. They're all different, of course, so there's no one-size-fits-all template. We need to do deep research, understand the incoming and outgoing energies from wave and wind energy to overland flow, and the hardening of our upland is exacerbating those issues, of course. So they sort of go like this. I've got a little kind of flow here for us so we can kick through. That was Cocan, this is Caraquet, Stratford PEI, when they decided to move their water treatment facility off the shore and push it inland. We revegetated and renaturalized all of the upland areas and the slope spaces. You can go to the next one, U-Haul Beach, where not only are we saving a park from being eroded by 2 meters per year, but also allowing for the bank swallows, which are now an endangered species, to move back in. And I'm happy to say that the birds came back after our 3-year program, which is super exciting. A lot of these programs bring in, oh yeah, and there's the one we did last year in Halifax. We have 2 booked for Halifax this year and a commitment to do 2 to 3 a year for the next 10 years so that Halifax can get through all of their communities under the Halifax umbrella. These ideas are about adding the human context. So how do we play, live, grow, educate in these very fragile zones? We swim here at these lakes because of the, Canada geese in particular on this project. All the poop that they leave behind them, the ducks, then our doggies, when we're walking them, they smell the poop. They think it's okay to poop there too, which means that Lake Bannock, which is a world-class paddling lake, ends up being so toxic that even our paddlers are not allowed to actually touch the water while they're paddling in races and training. So adding the vegetation to these edges helps us to sift all of that effluent that's moving towards the watercourse. It engages humans with beautiful plants, sometimes edible, sometimes attractive to pollinators and birds and whatnot. And then we work with 20 to 100 folks in a volunteer kind of capacity to put these projects together so that we're sort of hand-to-hand combat, learning about all these different strategies, and then being able to manipulate those in their own backyard, in their own scenarios, keep growing and learning over time with the variety of projects that we keep doing. We can hit the next slide. St. Mary's Boat Club back in 2017, and then a variety of private landowners. So everything from open shore, fully exposed rock walls, everything in between. We look at this intervention and resilience building impact from a spectrum, from fully engineered spaces in downtown Halifax at the King's Wharf, all the way to small properties in the middle of nowhere, outside of Marigamish or Antigonish. These spaces all need the plant community to slow down their rate of erosion. And so our workshops tend to be 2 or 3 days in length. We have months of research and site visits and interaction with engineers and contractors in the Lee. We put together a performance event where people are educated, they get field guides and handouts and interaction with our staff and the other experts in the field. And then there's follow-up monitoring to see just how precise and how wonderful have we been at slowing down the rate of erosion. We can hit the next one. Of course, we have principles to abide by.
I hate to
Yep.
mention it, but we only have so much time.
Sure, yep, that's okay, no problem. I was told I could have about 30 minutes, but that's
Oh,
okay.
I thought 10 was,
It's 10,
10 or 15, that's
Yes.
fine.
yeah, that's all, I mean,
we
and I get in
can-
trouble if I don't follow the rules.
No problem, that's fine at all. We can just leave you with this presentation, you can peruse it as you
I mean,
like.
it's very good information, but it's just that we
Thank
have to.
you.
we-
Sure. The invitation is to consider hosting a shore up in your community.
Yeah.
This summer is still available. We have some dates in July and August still open. If not now, when will you decide to do, something interactive and resilient building with your community? So certainly take your time. We're open for Q&A. All of our contact info is within the Ah, that must be the beeper it's like the big thing.
I don't know what that is.
Get off the stage.
Where that came from.
Get off the stage and roll it up. So thanks for your time. I really appreciate you. We're looking for interest that you might want to consider doing a project. We are commuting with at least 10 other municipalities in the Maritimes, including HRM. So think about it. See if you're interested in doing some climate adaptation work. I'm sure your processes are such that you need to fulfill. I know we all had to do mapping and flooding and all of that
Everything
over the
else, yeah.
years with those gas tax dollars. Most of these projects are fully funded through a provincial partnership or Environment and Climate Change Canada. So it's very low cost, but really high impact to you. All right, so yeah, I'll leave you to it and let me know when you have some
No, I
questions.
mean, it's great work when we
Follow
well
up.
understand that it needs to be done, and I'm grateful that you're doing it.
Absolutely. Yeah, a big part of it is as we continue to rock up and do that thing, we are losing habitat, right? We're losing the capacity to continue having a riparian buffer zone with those very unique plant species that live there. And we really don't want to lose any more animals and plants from this planet, losing so many every minute as it is. So thanks for listening. I'll get out of your way.
Thank you
Have a
very
great
much.
afternoon, and I'll look forward to follow up with you.
Thank you
Okay,
very much.
thanks again.
Sorry. We're gonna take a 10-minute, yeah, just because I need to go to the washroom. call the meeting back to order, and we're on 9.1.
That's me. This is in response to council approving the Village of Chester. So sorry. This is in response to council approving the request of the Village of Chester Commission to have a seat on our EDI Advisory Committee. So as a result, we just had to tweak the terms of reference to include them. So we're just putting some, thanks to Emily Key, she reviewed it and made some amendments to the terms of reference to include the village. And while we're at it, we just had a couple housekeeping things. They're all listed. Did you want to go through each one, or
Not particularly, unless somebody else wants to.
no?
I have a question.
Oh, sorry.
I was just looking at this, and I have no real issue with it, but how do we decide, because some committees we decide to appoint 2 counselors. This committee actually has 2 counselors and the warden. Others, we appoint 1 counselor. Like, how did this come to be? Because we also have our regional diversity committee as well. So I'm just wondering, like, it's pretty heavy on the governance side in this committee, and now we have, you know, a government official from the village. It seems like a lot
Yeah, I'm
of
not sure.
people, and it
I
just,
didn't even know I was on it.
yeah, you've missed every meeting so far.
Well, I mean, if you want to make that additional changes, that's also an
don't-
option.
Yeah, apparently all 3 of us are supposed to go every meeting.
Yeah.
And it just seems like a lot of people for one committee when we have other committees where usually we just send 1 council rep, and that's quite acceptable. As I just, it's not that it's not important, but, you know, that's why we have committees, so we don't send everybody from council.
Yeah. I mean, generally speaking, I'm ex officio and everything, but I don't go to.
No, but this one, you're actually named to be there.
Yeah, I didn't even know I was.
Yeah.
I have not been sending you things, so I
Well,
didn't think
No,
you
I
were.
didn't,
Well,
no,
read
you
what's
I
in the
don't ever
package.
did it.
It shows it. You
Well,
are,
take me off.
I assumed he was ex officio, I
it
guess.
doesn't say that.
Well, that's what it should say.
Okay.
That was what you were gonna say? Yeah. So
Exactly.
Just
Yeah,
put me
you
on as
say-
ex officio and take me off as a, because you don't, I've never been to one in my life.
So we can make that change
Well, I mean, I just haven't.
Yeah, we can make that change easily. Are we going down to 1 counselor? 2 counselors?
A discussion, and it has nothing to do with the value of the committee, because we have, all our committees are valuable. So the question is, why do we choose to put 2 in some and 1 in others? Explain. And if there's a valid reason, good.
Somebody tell me. Yep. Tina?
Certainly, I'm not sure if I can answer Councilor Vino's question without looking at the full slate of the committees and their mandates and so on, but there are a number that we have 2 and a number, and I would guess that they are more internal, if you will, like Fire Advisory Committee, we have 2 counselors. EDI, 2 counselors. So again, I could go on, those are internal to the municipality versus, Social Public Library, that's external. So maybe we just have to take a look at that list, and I feel that it's quite important that we continue with the 2. Abdallah, Councillor, Deputy Warden Asif and I sat on the committee from the beginning of time, and then it was Councillor Vino and myself, and then this past fall, I stepped away because of just the roster of committees that I'm involved with. So I think it's important. I didn't see a negative with any of those years of sitting on it with 2 councillors.
Well, whatever, big deal.
It's not a big deal, and it's not about importance, and it's not a negative. I mean, we could put 3, 4 counselors, that's not a negative, I guess. It just, we all have finite amounts of time, and there are many committees. And, so I'm just suggesting that we should at some point look at that, because I don't know how, it seems a bit, when I examined it, it seemed haphazard how we choose which committees we appoint 2, which ones we appoint 1. And this one had 3.
We can take a look at that, yep.
Up
Yeah,
until-
well, they made a mistake for me. Hello, sorry, Tommy.
Thank you, Warden Wember, through you to council. As nominating chairperson, it is a struggle to find some people for different committees. So if we have, some are carrying 8, some are carrying 7, some are carrying as low as 4 and 5. This is about a team effort. We all have to participate in different ways, and sometimes we take positions we necessarily don't want to have, but we have to have representation. So I definitely think working a system that is more feasible for everybody's participation is very important. And I can tell you the nominating committee struggles every time we have a situation to fill a position. So yes, I want to make sure that we're doing something in a more streamlined way. Thank you.
Well, we're going to have another nominating committee meeting not too long from now, so we can have this discussion there.
Tina would like to speak.
Tina, sorry.
It's okay. This is important. It's important to me. I would like to weigh in on the discussion that the nominating committee is going to be having.
Welcome to.
Thank you very much. It's what we signed up for. So in terms of responsibilities and a finite amount of time, it's what we signed up for. We knew that
and there
going
are
into
times
this.
when an individual who isn't who's on the committee can't make it, but at least we have the one person there, so it's not whatever, if you can't make it, you can't make it. Yeah. Anyway, so we're going to adopt the changes to the terms of reference?
Minus the warden. Minus the warden.
Yes.
That's,
I'm ex officio and everything. If they need me, I'll be there.
Absolutely.
Somebody moving it? Seconder?
I'll second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Oh, motion's carried. Okay, now where are we? We are at 10.1, Kaiser Meadow.
Morning,
Maureen.
Council. Felt really short there for a second. What I'm here today to discuss with you is the Kaiser Meadow Industrial Park planning for short and midterm plans over the coming years. This comes from our strategic priorities discussion, just so everybody is reminded of where this comes from. And what I'm just going to give what the report you have in front of you gives a brief outline of is both what is currently underway and what is proposed in the short and midterm for the next few years when it comes to promoting and developing Kaiser Meadow Industrial Park. So we have both timelines there, but we also have a timeline for a future decision date when it comes to long-term plans for the parks. Because if you remember some of our past conversations around Kaiser Meadow, the question became, so when do we have a check-in to make sure that our work is having impact and we can actually make a decision about how we proceed in the longer term with regards to investment in Kaiser Meadow Industrial Park. So what I wanted to just kind of give as a background first, and I won't go through the document in full, you have it in front of you, but essentially what we have right now at Kaiser Meadow is approximately 150 acres of land that is available for development. We have a few different businesses that are there, and it's valued at about $20,000 an acre per evaluation that was done a few years ago in 2021. We budget approximately, and I want to make sure I go over this a little bit, approximately $20,000 a year for marketing of Kaiser Meadow. There are additional funds in our budget, but they are for things like surveys if a sale is completed. So the last time we have actually spent that money was 2023. When we don't actually have any sales in a given year, we don't spend that money. So it's in our budget, but it doesn't necessarily get spent unless there is activity at the park. In 2024, we had some additional spending as well, where we had matching funds from the federal government through a CAN export program to produce some of the materials that were provided as attachments as well for this document. So in addition to the amount that we spend for marketing, we receive approximately $34,000 a year in revenue from Kaiser Meadow from lease, from both the lease expense, the lease revenue we receive, and a revenue that we receive from the provision of internet services to the different businesses that operate in the area. So it's about $34,000 a year. Additionally, we did have a sale in 2023 of 4 acres of land, and that generated about $80,000 in revenue for the municipality. So when it comes to our future-looking plans in both the short-term and the midterm, we've just provided a chart here that goes through the next couple of years and what we are proposing to do. I want to make sure that as I go through this, while we're asking for direction, this is all subject to budget approvals annually. So we're not looking for final decisions on these. That would come through any budgeting process that is done. But we wanted to make sure that we were aligned when it came to what we were proposing to do over the coming years. So in the short term, what we are proposing to do in year one when it comes to our actions, like I said, I'm not going to go through them individually, but if anybody has any questions about them, please raise those. We're looking to continue the existing work that we have underway, that we've been doing over the last number of years. We're looking to implement some of the direction that has already been received from council, but yet has not been implemented, but we were looking to do some of those in year one. And we're also looking to build on the past work that we've done through networking with partners, such as our work with the BDO zone and as an Atlantic certified site. So we're trying to work with our partners to really sell the site itself. There's no proposed budget increase in this year one. These are things that we've been doing over the long term, over the last few years when it comes to the activities that we'd be undertaking. And even though we don't align them, our revenues would continue to exceed how much we are spending on marketing the plant. So we anticipate receiving, again, $34,000 in revenue in this coming year from our lease sales lease revenues and the internet service that we're providing in the area, and our expenses would be approximately $20,000 for the area, unless there were sales, and then we have budget in there as well to support those sales through survey and things like that. When it comes to the midterm actions, which are looking at 2026 through 2028, most of the actions that you'll see there would either continue that work, which is the status quo marketing and responding to inquiries that we receive, but we've also included some additional things that we would like to do. But what I want to make sure that everybody notices is that in each of those chart items, you'll notice that we put an item there that says it's dependent upon something. So in addition to annual budget approvals, what we've put there are, in order to proceed with this item, we would expect the following trigger. So for example, I'm just going to use one as an example. What we have said is one of the things that we would like to do in the midterm when it comes to Kaiser Meadow is to develop a demonstration lot. So when we go and give site tours to prospective investors in the area, right now we're showing them green areas that are forested. We would love to have a 1 acre lot that has been leveled, that is ready to go. However, in order to do that, we would want to make sure that we not only consider the landfill requirements and where they might need to be removing clay for the future development of the landfill, but also that we have actual money from lot sales to support us reinvesting that money that we get from the sale into the development of that lot. So you'll notice in each of the items that we have under the midterm, we have a dependency. So in other words, what would we be, in order for this to proceed, we are suggesting that we only do that if X happens. And one of the really obvious examples of that is the 7th thing that we have on our midterm list is the installation of signage on the 103 and also potentially on the trunk highway. In order for that to happen, it's not only our dependency, but the province requires that 25% of the industrial park be developed in order to proceed with that. So we've defined what that 25% of the park would look like in order for us to proceed with the installation of signage. So those are the overview of the short and the midterm plans. When it comes to long-term, we are proposing that no later than March 2028, which would be 3 years from now, we come back with results of the impact, how many inquiries we received, what the sales have been, what revenue has been generated, all the different measures of success that we would be showing to determine whether or not we wish to continue the ongoing investment in Kaiser Meadow itself, or if we want to look at alternatives for the area. So that's what we wanted to have a discussion about, get some direction, and at the end of the day, we are requesting that council direct staff to move forward with our short-term and mid-term plans, subject to budget approvals on an annual basis, and then bring back those long-term plans no later than March 2028 to proceed.
Well, it's all subject to budget. And I know we can't talk about it right now, but we do have a sale in the works on development.
We have inquiries underway, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, Sharon, sorry.
Thank you. I'm very much in favor to continue certainly in the short and midterm. Our climate has changed somewhat. It may help us, and I mean, at that point, when we get there, we can decide, but I think, you know, to keep moving forward with it, I think maybe, you know, different marketing and what we're trying to do, it may be helpful to attract more businesses to the area.
Andre?
This isn't a budget debate, but it's good information as a preamble to our budget debate. And my feeling on Kaiser Meadow is that we should keep our investments as low as possible because if we actually had a tally of everything we've invested to date, I think it would be pretty mind-blowing how much we've invested in trying to develop this into a park, and you know, to what end? I don't know. So you know, there comes a time, you know, you get the odd sale here and there. That's nice. You know, even if they buy, you know, do they actually build anything? Sometimes they just buy land and then it's dormant again for years. So the cost is so low, it's not, for some corporations, not even a barrier. It's just like an idea. They buy the land, and we're hoping that it might attract some sort of employment opportunities, and it really, so far, it hasn't really been panning out that way for the most part. So, you know, I'm not ready to shut the door, but for me, I wouldn't want to invest very much, because I feel like every year it's just more and more throwing it down a hole, and it's just going away.
Yeah, I mean, we got to take a look at it, that's for sure, but hopefully over the next couple of years, it's going to actually prove to be more value than it is today, based on my understanding of the current is that they will be constructing buildings and employing people.
Our fingers are definitely crossed, yes.
Yeah. So we're going to move forward? I mean, it's all subject to budget anyway. And there's not a lot of, Tom, sorry.
Thank you, Warden Weber. I'll make the motion that council direct staff to implement the KMIP short-term and midterm plans subject to annual budget approvals, and bring back the recommendations on long-term plans no later than March 2028.
Seconder?
I'll second that.
Discussion?
We'll see you in the budget.
All those in favor? Opposed, motion's carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. 10.2, EDI action plan submission to province. 10.2.
Yay, it's me again.
Okay.
Just 1 second, I have to get this. Okay, so this is going to take a little bit longer, but it will only be as complicated as you make it. I'm just kidding.
Well,
Okay, so a little while ago, council approved us to proceed with reviewing our existing EDI action plan. So we did that, and we carried out public engagement with residents. We had an online survey. We met with small businesses and organizations in the community. And while we got some great feedback, we didn't have a tremendous amount of participation, but what we had was good. We have some recommendations from that experience. So we took all of that information, took it to our EDI advisory committee, and they vetted it, and we made some changes to our EDI action plan. Since then, we have the Village of Chester on our committee, and so this part is a little bit complicated in that we are a part of a regional plan, and we will be represented through the regional plan. The villages in Lunenburg County are not, which means the Village of Chester and the Village of Hebville are not represented. So to represent our end, us and the Village of Chester, we are going to submit our existing plan that we already reviewed and we already have. We're also going to make that available to the province to cover the requirements they have under the Act, under the Dismantling Hate Act. So we took our plan and kind of revamped it a little bit because they had a template that they wanted us to follow. It didn't really take much more work. We had an introduction and a summary, which you'll see in here. This, by the way, is the unformatted plan, so it will look much nicer when we
Submit it to them.
present it. The requirement is only to make it available for viewing by the province, which we do anyways. They can view our current plan. It's already online. The only difference is that we email them a link to it. That's what the submission is. So I wanted to give council an opportunity to look at the changes that we made. There's a couple of notes that I wanted to mention. The first is, so when you get to the plan, the committee decided not to change any of the objectives because they're still relevant and they still hold true. We included some of our past actions because they're continuing and we wanted to make known that we're still working on those things. And also, we have some actions that are in italics. Let's see if I can find one. Oh. Yeah, so the actions that are in italics are actually have been elevated to the regional level. So we will be operating in support of the regional, these are included in the regional plan, and us as a municipality will be supporting those, but we won't necessarily be carrying them out. So while it's not our specific work, it is work that we'll be asked to support. So I just wanted to make that differentiation. We also included some benchmarks at the request or at the direction of the advisory committee to demonstrate some measurable action, the measurements of the actions, and we can show that if the province looks at it. I think that's pretty much all the notes I had. I did not include a conclusion, but there will be a conclusion. I just haven't done it yet. And I just wanted to also let you know that we have, while I didn't include it as an appendix here, we do make reference to the arts and culture strategy, which council already approved. And so those number 4, I think, objective number 4 will be included in this as well as an appendix. And, oh, right. And we also have a copy of the information report that I gave to EDI if anyone's interested in seeing the results of the feedback. Did I get it, Erin?
Yeah, so you can just review the motions that you're looking at.
Oh,
Yes,
right.
what do you want us to do?
Okay. There is going to be a little bit of a change where the accessibility plan and the regional plan and the regional EDI plan that Jem will be presenting to you in a couple of weeks, they're on a 3-year review. So I'm hoping to coincide with that schedule as opposed to reviewing our plan every year. It just makes sense. Yeah, and also to approve the revised equity plan, EDI plan, that we had planned to do anyway. And then further to approve submission of the plan to the Office of Equity and Anti-Racism by April 1st. And this satisfies the requirements under the Act for us as well as the village as prescribed public sector bodies. And also to adopt a similar timeline of 3 years, as same as
Rather more,
the,
yeah.
right.
That's better.
Thoughts?
Okay, anybody questions about those 2 recommendations? Somebody prepared to move them?
So moved.
Moved by Tina, seconded by Sharon. Okay, I saw her name, hand first. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you. Thank you. What?
And we have it on.
Oh, that's next, yeah. 10.3. Ellen, okay. Don't see her.
Nope, she's coming. Okay, Ellen?
Yep, I'm here. I'm just joining online. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yep, okay, great. I'm gonna try to share my screen. And just let me know, is that showing up okay? I'm guessing that's a yes.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you
Yes.
very much. Okay, although I realize my camera isn't on. There you go. Okay. Okay, great. So are you able to see when I scroll my screen like that?
Yep.
Yep, okay, perfect. All right, so thank you very much for allowing me to present virtually today. I am not well, so I really appreciate this opportunity. I'm here to talk about the Lunenburg County Accessibility Plan. And as you know, because I have spoken to you about this multiple times, in the past, we have the Nova Scotia Accessibility Act in Nova Scotia, and that was passed in 2017. And one of our obligations as municipalities under that act is to provide a plan around accessibility every 3 years. And so the first one was done in 2021, and the region decided to do that kind of jointly. So all of the 5 municipalities in Lunenburg County submitted that plan to the province back in 2021. The next requirement is to update that plan, and that's due on April 1st of 2025, so just a few weeks away. So we've been working on this plan, and I say we, meaning staff and also input from the Accessibility Advisory Committee. And as a reminder, that committee is a regional committee as well that's made up of councillors and community members from around the region. And at least 50% of those members need to have a disability or represent an organization that represents persons with disabilities. And so it's really ensuring that we're hearing from people with first voice perspectives and lived experience of disability when we're making decisions about things that impact that group of people. So what I'm hoping to do today is just review the main parts of the plan, and you would have received this in your agenda package. So I'm hoping you've had a chance to kind of review it in detail. So I'm going to do a bit broad strokes here, but a few highlighting of some things that I think are really important. And what I'm asking today is for council to consider accepting this plan to submit to the province so that we can make make the deadline of April 1st.
Well, yeah.
Please.
We better approve it.
Yeah.
We're planning to make that.
If not, it is what it is. But okay, so obviously our front page, this covers 2025 to 2028 when the next update of this plan will be due. So we have an acknowledgements page, and similar to previous presentations today, we have a land acknowledgement, an Indigenous land acknowledgement. We have an acknowledgement or a recognition of African Nova Scotian history in Nova Scotia. And we also have this third note that is something that the Accessibility Advisory Committee speaks of each time there's a meeting. And that is that it's a recognition that they work in affirmation that accessibility is a human right, And that's recognized both at the UN and at the province of Nova Scotia through the Accessibility Act. And there's also an acknowledgement there of intersectionality. So knowing that when people have multiple types of personal experiences and identities, that really can impact the way that disability and other types of barriers show up in their lives, and can really magnify the barriers and the challenges that those people face. And Kay's presentation earlier this morning really did a great job at explaining what intersectionality is. And the committee wanted to make sure that the human rights recognition and this intersectionality piece were represented in this plan. So the next section is just some background. So it talks about the legislation and the update to the plan. So I'm not going to get into any detail with that because I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Now, this section is the what we believe section. And this was also in the original accessibility plan from 2021. And there's only really a few changes, and mainly one of the big changes that was made between the previous plan and this plan is a change in language. So, you know, there's really been quite an effort around the province to write things in plain language rather than in kind of, you know, jargon and you know, more complex ways that are just less understandable for everyone generally. So a lot of this has been kind of updated to write it in as plain a way as possible. So just a reminder, plain language is really about presenting information in a way that a person can access it, can understand it, and act on that information the first time they read it, rather than having to read it multiple times or figure out what words mean or that kind of thing. So there's been an effort to do that compared to the last plan. And so, as I mentioned, these kind of areas of what we believe are really about kind of like what are the you know, the basic principles that this is all based on. So equitable access, meaning you know, we want to make sure that people have access to all of the things that municipalities have to offer, and that we know that giving everybody exactly the same treatment isn't always what's fair, and so it's a recognition of that. Then we have first voice, and I mentioned this before. So really, that talks about having personal experience or lived experience of disability, and making sure that we hear from those folks, because when we make decisions that impact people, it's really important to hear from the people that's going to impact. Flexibility, and this is really a recognition that you know, we know that we can put out a plan and have all of the best intentions, but sometimes things change and we need to be flexible and respond to those changes. And an example is, you know, we've got this plan ready to go, and then last week, and I'm not sure if this has gotten to you yet, but the built environment standard under the Accessibility Act was released last week. And so that may have some impact on what happens during the 3 years of this plan. So we'll need to respond to that. Then there's collaboration, which I think is pretty self-explanatory. We're already doing that as a region. And then this is the one, number 5, is intersectionality, and that is what has been added this time compared to the last one. And I don't think I need to go into detail about why we're doing this. But I would say that, you know, the fact that there is the Accessibility Act under the province, there is also, as Jen mentioned in her presentation just a moment ago, there is the Dismantling Racism and Hate Act from 2022, which now also requires that there is a plan submitted to the province by all municipalities. And so there's sort of an effort through this plan and the anti-racism and diversity plan to kind of think about how these things intersect rather than kind of doing two fully separate, you know, efforts. So I'm going to skip over the glossary of terms because you have that, and it's just basically a, you know, introduction to all of the terms that are used in the plan. There's a space here left, so this is the only gap in the plan, which is waiting for the letter from mayors and the warden, which will, be just an introduction, recognition of some of the things that have been happening, and the commitment to continue. For evaluation, it's fairly straightforward. There'll be continued public engagement and then also annual progress reports to community and councils. And then also, yeah, so those are the main things. And then also some efforts to kind of figure out how to use the data and partner with other organizations who can kind of help us figure out how to use data to inform our future plans. And an example of that, and we've tried to get information, more detailed information locally about people with disabilities in our community. And there's really so very little to tell us what our actual numbers are, what types of disabilities people have, and what the experience is. So we have tons of anecdotal evidence. We have stuff from our public engagement, but we don't have really good statistics. And so that actually plays into one of the next steps recommendations, which is to support ways of getting more of that information so we can make better decisions. So this page is just, again, overview of what we do know, and the most recent statistics are not that recent. They're from 2022, and that's from the Canadian Survey on Disability, and that tells us that 37.9% of Nova Scotians say that they have a disability, and that's highest in the country rather, and is higher than the last time they did that survey 5 years before that. So again, we don't have really recent and good local data at this point. So we talk about progress here, and I'm not going to get into details. You have, again, this document, but you also at the end has the appendices, and that has a page for each municipality to show kind of a narrative summary of what each municipality has done since the last plan and before to increase the accessibility in their regions, and it's quite a lot. Okay, now public engagement. So this is kind of high level information about what we heard from communities. So we did do a survey, but like Jen explained in her presentation, we don't always get as much feedback as we'd like, and there are all kinds of reasons for that. But what we did learn, so that the numbers and the number of respondents, maybe we couldn't do a huge amount in terms of, analysis of the specific responses. We did get lots of open-ended answers, so we were able to use that information in combination with what we heard from public engagement sessions. So when we actually heard from people in person, in order to kind of come up with their key findings, which are here. And again, I'm not going to go into lots of detail, but our original plan had 5 different sections or categories, which we've named areas of focus here in this plan. And they correspond to 5 of the 6 standard areas in the Accessibility Act. And what we learned from the public engagement is that all of this stuff is still very relevant. So, certain goods and services, information and communications, built environment, transportation and employment are all areas where people with disabilities are finding there are still lots of barriers and challenges. And so those continue to be, important areas that we will focus on in this regional plan over the next 3 years. We have a page here just saying, like, you know, there are some really great things that municipalities are doing. So feedback about, you know, the positives that have happened over the last few years, and also areas that we need to work on in terms of who we didn't hear from in the surveys and the other public engagement. And that includes that kind of reference to intersectionality that we really haven't heard as much as we would like to have. And so there needs to be some efforts to really make sure that we overcome that gap over the next few years. So I mentioned the 5 areas of focus already, and from the public engagement and just thinking about what needs to happen in the future, we've added this 6th area of focus called awareness. And that was a theme throughout most of the feedback that we received, that people don't seem to have a good sense of what accessibility and disability really mean, what barriers there are. And it's not, you know, necessarily malicious or unkind, it's just a lack of understanding and awareness. And so that really has come up as something that needs to be focused on in the next few years if we're going to make headway to make a more equitable region through our communities. So this section here is all priorities. So a lot of these were in the original plan as well, but they've been kind of renamed. And again, some of the language has been updated a little bit, but essentially based on the public engagement that really told us that a lot of these, you know, are still really relevant and still continue to be things that need to be addressed. And, you know, the fact that they are still there doesn't mean that we haven't done anything about them. It just means that this is really challenging work and it's long-term work. A lot of these things are culture change. They're related to culture change rather than just like, you know, updating something, right? So they really do take time to complete. And yeah, so they are what will be used, what has been used to create actions for the region, but that will also be used to kind of guide other changes that happen in the municipalities individually. So this section is the regional actions. So on the left, we have a whole series of actions that the municipalities can work together on, so collaborate on, or at least communicate about. And then on the right is kind of the priority, as you know, noted in the previous pages, like that they're associated with. So there are quite a number of these, and again, those fall under the different categories. And the intention is that the municipalities work together on these. And one of the things, you know, I've talked several times about kind of this idea of intersectionality and the way that we can kind of try to collaborate on getting things done. And, you know, when you see the anti-racism and diversity plan, you will see a fair bit of overlap on some of these actions. And, you know, an example is like creating a guide to help staff and councils to understand how to update, you know, a policy or a bylaw with an equity lens, so including equity, diversity, inclusion, and accessibility in that. So it doesn't make sense to do one for accessibility and then do one for kind of broader EDI. So the idea is that that action will be the same for both of those plans. And there are several instances where that's the case. Just a page with some of the partners that we've worked with in some of the engagement sessions that we've had. So like South Public Libraries is on there. They've been excellent hosts for us when we've been able to have our engagement sessions there. And then this, one of the last pages here is some of the next steps. So I'll just highlight one of these, which is the first one, because I've talked about the other ones before. And it is just to have each municipality on its own provide a public plan for their own actions that they'll do. And if you recall, I did present kind of an orientation to council must have been a few months ago now, on some of the actions that Municipality of Chester would put forward, and it was originally going to be in this plan itself, but now that's changed. This is specifically for regional actions, and then these other actions that are individual to Chester will be a separate document, but will still need to be made public. So you're quite on your way, well on your way to doing that through the work that you've already done, looking at the implementation plan for Chester that Jen would have presented to you a few weeks ago. And then finally, in the appendices, you'll note these summaries that are all individual for each municipality. This is the Chester one with some of the photos showing some of the changes from the last few years. So that is pretty much it. That's the plan. Now I'll stop sharing my screen for any questions.
Anyone, any particular questions? There's a pretty basic recommendation that's being made, and we've spent a lot of time on this. No questions, so somebody prepared to move So moved by Tina, seconded by Clarissa. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you much. Hope you get better.
Great, thank you. Me too, thank you.
Okay. Now I am somewhere else. Community boundary, New Ross 40s, and we have, that's the report from the last go-round, I think?
Yep. So Sylvia is here to speak to it.
Yeah.
Good morning. So in 2018, an information report on the highway signage for the 40s, New Ross was completed. Did you want me to go through a quick summary?
Quick summary.
The report included an overview of the Nova Scotia Civic Address File, which is a provincial database. General service areas, or GSAs, were developed for the administration of the Nova Scotia Civic Address File. They're medium scale. They are comparable to traditional communities, but there are some differences. They encompass all areas of the province, and even remote areas are assigned to a GSA to provide a consistent means of identifying them.
Could you move your mic down a little closer to you?
Yeah, no problem.
Okay.
The names of the GSAs are the same as the local community where possible, but this does not indicate the GSA name has any official status outside the context for civic addressing. During the time when the province updated the 911 system, with the development of the Nova Scotia Civic Address File database, the province reviewed and adjusted their general service area boundaries. Many factors were considered in this review, such as community name signs, property boundaries, physical features such as rivers, shorelines, bridges, road access into the community, fire protection boundaries, town and village boundaries, electoral boundaries, official place names. The GSA boundaries were then further refined with a consultation with the municipality and emergency services, including local fire departments. It is of the opinion that the 40s GSA boundary follows the original 40s land grant properties along its eastern edge. It then spreads out into the surrounding rural landscape to take into account the road access in the area. Images of the land grant maps can be found in Appendix B. So that's quite a ways down. The current Nova Scotia Civic Address File GSA boundary for the 40s can be found in Appendix C. It's still a bit further. So there's some of the land grant maps. GSA boundaries, Appendix C. And the current community name signage aligns with this boundary. Appendix D has some site visit photos of the sign. And then in 2009, the province requested that each municipality sign off on their GSA boundaries for the Nova Scotia Civic Address File, and that sign-off can be found in Appendix E. There it is there.
We did.
The provincial civic addressing system is used primarily to support emergency services. Small adjustments can be made by the municipality. We have policy P61, which outlines that process. It can be found in Appendix G. So that's kind of a brief summary.
Yeah. So essentially, the current boundaries meet all the provincial standards. They meet the historical standards from what they can gather.
The highway signage is placed at the GSA boundary for the 40s, along the 40s road.
So I know we have a request to move it or change it. And I think she's gonna come in maybe next week. Well, maybe I'll ask now, just precisely why do they want it changed if it,
Okay, so I'll begin. Yeah, I'm not gonna make a lot of comments now.
okay,
I think I'm gonna stick with the fact that we have a request
yeah.
that was part of our package, February the 27th, 2 weeks ago.
And we asked for this first.
Yeah, and then we asked for this, and I referenced that on the 27th as a matter of the public minutes when Sylvia, thank you, came in on September the 20th, 2018, as she had said and reported. So in the minutes, it says that a bunch of stuff, but I indicated that this is not my opinion, and I did share this with staff on the day that they reviewed their conclusions prior to coming into the meeting on the 20th. So I've been very respectful of the entire exercise, and will continue to be very respectful, but am not in agreement with where we've landed, and I've made that clear. So I guess just referring back to the letter from the resident,
Yeah. Just wanted to-
and based on where we concluded that day, and that was, Warden Weber commented that the public record doesn't show a requirement to change. The public would have to want us to request a change for whatever reason, so this is now started. So Denise is more than willing to come in. I don't know if she's available next week or the week after, I'm not sure her schedule, and I don't know if she's going to want to reach out to the committee, to the group that gathered and met with me a couple of months ago, because it is more than Denise Dodge Baker, of course, as it should be.
Oh, yeah, as it should be, yeah.
As it should be. And so I would love to extend that invitation to her to come in to speak at our invitation. So that's a little different than what we've seen so far. So my guess would be is we might go beyond the 10 minutes. I don't know. This would be the invitation of council, so it's a different manner of doing it. So I can check her schedule, or Aaron can, or Tara, somebody on staff can, and maybe that might be best.
Well, there's no urgency to the decision,
not
so
at all.
whatever works
No
for her. But
urgency.
I think somebody needs to come in and explain to us precisely why and how many people are in support and are there people who aren't and all that.
Well, the thing is, really all it does is take one.
Yeah.
And Denise has some good questions in her letter, and that is around the process that took place before I was on council, I think in 2009. The process around public engagement and how that was undertaken, because
Okay.
I wasn't able to indicate to her any evidence of public engagement. So she'll come in and ask those questions, so maybe what I'll do is that okay, Aaron, to leave it with staff to reach out to?
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Oh, Andre?
The only comment I have is, we have this report. It seems to suggest that the place name is where it historically was.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it is or not. I don't have any dog in this fight, but do they have this report?
Oh,
You know, and it's not clear where the error is in the report. If they come, which I hope they do, it would be great if they could actually explain where the error is in the report so that we could understand better what to do. Because I don't know, is this just a matter of certain, if you have a mobilized group of people and they say we want the community to start here, is that how it's to be done, or is it actually based on
some historical data.
Like, I don't understand if it's community consultation, like, do they just all get together and decide, or if it's historically always been in a place, then that's where it is, whether they agree or disagree. I really don't know the answer to this.
Well, that's what they gotta come in and explain. Yeah. Or, yeah.
And maybe our legal counsel can explain how, to us at some point, maybe before that meeting, how, like, can a community just decide to move it if they all are in favor, or is it, if it's been
You should think
identified
about
historically
that.
in a certain area, then that's what it is? Like, I don't understand what the impact is, like, if we even have the authority to change something based on a mobilized group of community members. I'm curious, because years ago, I had some concerns raised about the location of the Coleman's Cove sign on the Aspetuagan Loop, and it sort of went nowhere, but, you know, you could easily see how, if you had an engaged community, you could be moving signs quite a lot.
Speak based on the report that was presented in 2018, the number of factors that they look at when it comes to determining the names. So the intent, first off, is to use a name that people are most likely to report when they're calling 911, because the main purpose of GSA is for first responders, and so the signs align with those GSA boundaries. And then the factors that were considered then were community name signs, property boundaries, physical features such as rivers, shorelines, and bridges, road access into the community, fire protection, town boundaries. So they kind of look at all of that. It's not just the petition of the residents, and I believe there's a certain kilometer range that they petition in terms when it comes to the name changes. And Sylvia, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe we'd have to go through, it's a process through the province, right, in order for this to be changed officially. You'd have to go through the Nova Scotia geographic naming process.
That would be if there's a change in the name, or if you want to approve a new name.
Okay.
But the
The
GSA.
boundary might be different then.
The
It'd be a
GSA
different
for
process.
civic addressing is a little different
Yeah,
than that.
okay.
Yeah, great.
I guess it's saying that, you know, it has to align with rivers and bridges and whatever, that's fine, those are all vague. But how does it specifically relate in this instance? Because, you know, just saying, you know, we consulted a variety of things, but they don't, like, I'd like to see a little bit more information. It's obviously of importance to these folks, enough that they're gonna
They wanna change
put the
it.
work into it, so, I mean, you know, I guess I gotta understand. I wasn't around in 2018 to see this, so I don't know.
Well, I was, but my memory isn't that good, and I don't keep the same degree of notes that Tina does. Sorry, Tina.
Oh, it's okay, thank you. So to answer one of Councillor Vino's questions, yes, the committee has seen this report. When I met with them, again, I don't know, a month or so ago, in my preparation to meet with them is I made a photocopy of the entire report, as we see today, copied it for all the committee members, all the group that had gathered, every member in the room that day, and as well verbally went through the discussion when I brought it to council the fall before, and then the discussion at council and what we landed on that day. So I went through that with the entire group. And it's just such, again, we'll land wherever we land, but just mentioning personally, the sign is 4.2 kilometers east of where it originally was when I was a youngster in the community. So that's a big change. So again, they'll come in.
Okay, bring them in.
Yep.
Okay, I want to talk to Sylvia for a minute. You guys just want to take a 5-second break, or? Okay, call the meeting back to order. And where am I? Oh, 11.1, I think? No?
The draft letter, that's right, yeah. So we're at the,
Oh, 11.2.
we're at 10.5, so it's the draft letter to Minister Tim Holman regarding the coastal planning.
10.5. That's not on my list or in my package.
Here it is right here. So this is a letter, this was on the February 27th council agenda, and it was deferred to today's agenda from that meeting.
Okay.
This is in response to the Village Planning Advisory Committee, one of their motions, and requesting that council send a letter to the province in order to encourage the province to prioritize the development of the model bylaw when it comes to the coastal protection piece.
And this is his response.
So this is a draft, no, this is a
Oh.
draft letter for council's review, and if council agrees with the letter, then we could have a motion and have it signed by Warden Weber for submission to the province.
Do you want me to sign it or not? It wasn't in my package or something. Yeah. Yeah? Okay. Moved. Seconded by Clarissa. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. There, you can keep
Thank
that
you.
one. So am I on 11.1 now? I don't even know where to put that now.
So 11.1 is a notice regarding the community naming correction of Aldersville. So it's adding the additional A into the name, so this is just a notice
Oh.
to council. And we'll be sharing this in the newsletter, the next newsletter as well.
We all good?
Tina, can I speak?
You want to speak?
Yes, I just want to stress the joy that I received as a resident in Aldersville, receiving correspondence in my mailbox 5 years later. So, again, thank you to council when it came to council on this date way back in 2020. So February of 2020 to February of 25.
Get that.
The province was able to open the file and make the correction. It wasn't a change, it was a correction. How it was ever, in the first place, the 1A dropped, but I guess somebody was tired maybe that day and made the change. But I do like to stress, we all have, we all have our community pride. We are not named after the alder bush in the ditch. We are named after the name Alders, and most people would know Hank Snow, right? Hank Snow, Hank Snow's wife was Minnie Alders. Go Aldersville.
Okay, we're all good with that one then? Okay, 11.2 is Western Woodlot Conference, and yeah, I already received that. I haven't responded yet, but it's my intention to go. Yeah. Yeah. So I guess you're all welcome to go if you want to. Okay, 12.1.
12.1 is the cost of living consideration for 2025-26 salary bands. So every year prior to April 1st, we bring a report to council to approve for budgeting reasons the increase to compensation in regards to CPI. So this year it's 2.3%. Further to that, we're requesting an increase of 8.55% to the level 1 band of the salary scale in order to bring that up to the legislative minimum wage that will be coming into effect in October.
Well, that's kind of straightforward. Well, we always use cost of living, and we have to meet the minimum wage, so are we prepared, somebody prepared to move, we accept the recommendation? Moved by Tom, seconded? Seconded by Sharon. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Okay. 12.2. New private road name assignment, Community Development Recreation. Petition received.
We have 2 new private road names proposed. One is Trufflewood Trail, and the second is Pine Brook Way. They're both unique road names in Nova Scotia. We have no objections from Public Works or the Fire Department. The closest sounding name would be Pine Brook Drive in Beaver Bank in HRM, and Trufflewood would be unique, no like sounding names.
Anybody any issues? Somebody prepared to move, we accept? Yeah. Moved by Clarissa, second by Sharon. Discussion, all those in favor, opposed, motion's carried. Thank you, Sylvia. Don't forget my sign.
I won't.
They'll just get mad at me. Okay, I'm getting close. 12.3, fire services registration, yeah, well,
Am I on here?
Yep.
Yep. Good morning, council. I have the registration summary to present this morning with a motion to receive that report and to direct staff to go ahead with the Schedule B letters. So just as a reminder,
straightforward.
we're operating under policy P33, which is the registration summary, annual updates required by the fire departments or fire commissions, the advisory committee, and the fire departments. So I've reviewed this information, and under P33 requires that each fire agency provide the municipality with what we call operational evidence annually on its ability to provide the services it registered with the municipality. So the information from the Chester Fire Services Committee, the fire commissions, and the fire departments on Schedule A of P33, and the fire taxes on Schedule C of P33 have been reviewed, and they are in compliance with the registration requirements. In summary, the registration data indicates that the fire departments are adequately funded, equipped, trained to provide the services that they have registered with the municipality. Just a couple of highlights on the report. Fire tax rates. This is in 2024. Chester Village District 3 had increased the tax rate by 2 cents to 9.4. Martins River, on the other hand, had dropped their fire tax rate by 2 cents to 16. And there was no other changes in tax rates for the other districts. No changes to the fire district boundaries, except that we did make some mapping corrections in District 4 in the Lakewood Drive area, and that was resolved satisfactorily between the departments. Financials, the records are audited annually. We're currently waiting for the final sign-off on the Hubbard's financials from last year, so that's in progress. No changes in the corporate status, except that the Chester Fire Services Committee was incorporated under the Municipal Government Act and registered with joint stocks as a not-for-profit organization, so that was taken care of. No major changes in the insurances, except that the rates continue to go up based on the market conditions in Canada and across North America at this present time. We continue to do or supply funding for the workers' compensation for all our firefighters, and the rates have actually been stabilized on that. Registered service calls, I won't go into a lot of detail because there isn't an information report which provides the details on all the calls for each department for last year. But there were no major changes in the service levels registered. And currently, the total number of calls across the municipality actually decreased a little bit from 1,303 to 1092 in 2024. And that was primarily because of the 2023 floods and fires, and we had a lot of extra calls that year. Yeah. Operationally, we had Chris Turpin replaced Mike Snare as the fire chief in Blandford. No other changes in the chief officers for the fire departments in 2024. No major injuries to our firefighters, which is good news, and the WC rate has stabilized. Membership across the departments, about 220, it's stable. One note is that we do seem to be having a drop in our junior programs, and that we're going to have to talk to the chief to see what we can do about that. There's only a couple of the departments that actually have active juniors programs now. Western Shore actually took delivery of their new mini pumper in July, which congratulations to them. And all the departments and commissions are now attending the fire advisory group on a bi-monthly basis, and the chiefs are meeting on a bi-monthly basis in the off month of the FAC. So all those are now in progress. So that's really a high-level summary of any of the major changes.
Yeah. So all we really need is a motion to receive and approve the.
Yeah, to receive the report and to authorize myself to issue Schedule B, or actually Pam to issue Schedule Bs.
Yeah. Tina?
Thank you. Just a comment, because you had mentioned with the mini pumper purchased with the Western Shore.
Yes.
She's a beauty.
Yeah.
So she, of course, the fire department at an event in Western Shore in the summer, I was there, and the fire department members were there with the mini pumper, and I think that we should all pay attention, because, I mean, I know my area with back roads and cottage roads and so on, that machine is going to be able to get in there and do what it needs to do.
It actually is one of the major considerations for them to, because of the off-road conditions.
Beauty.
Yeah.
Beauty.
And it actually serves as a supply pumper, so that you can feed it up into that pumper, which is good. So, yeah. Actually, the other departments are looking at those things. Yeah.
Somebody prepared to move option one?
I'll move that we receive and approve the annual P33 registration summary and send the Schedule B confirmations to the respective departments.
Moved by Andre, seconded by Tom. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you.
I covered most of the information report, so it's in there, in your package. If there's any questions, just let me know.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, district grants. We don't have any rec department people anymore?
No, they're not here, so the district grants are there for approval. There is one update, though. The Chester United Baptist Church, they're withdrawing their request as the heat
that's
pump
correct,
program they were applying to has been canceled. So that would be removed from the request, but the other,
Just, wait a second, I don't see anything yet. There's one. Minor basketball, it says District 3, but I thought they were asking for support from other districts.
We already discussed that. Chad just didn't get it on there, but I said I was with Counselor Bremner. The basketball that was there for District 3.
Okay, well, they called me and I told them I'd support them too, like
Well, if we
I told
wanna-
Chad that I would. I'll split it 3 ways and.
Okay.
Thank you, Warden Weber. Yeah, I don't know how many of you received calls. I definitely received the call, said I would support it, then
Yeah,
Counselor
so did I.
Church and Warden Weber said they'd come in on it, and
I didn't, but I will. I mean,
there you go, we got 4. So, Aaron, if you could make that aware that the 4 of us will split it.
And what is the amount?
It's for the Chester and Area Basketball Association.
Yeah.
$2,000.
Yeah.
They have about 74, I think they told me, participants from all
Yeah.
over the municipality.
Yeah, it's all across municipality.
And
The
it's
guy
a
who's asking
great
for the money who
program
runs
for-
it lives in Chester Basin, so that's what.
Yeah,
why he called
and they're
me.
from everywhere, so it's a very good attended program, and a lot of youth are being encouraged to go out and participate, so I fully support that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so having said that, are there any issues with any of the other grant requests, or just we prepared to move that we approve them all? Moved? Moved by Tom, seconded by Sharon. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, designated community fund grant request. Chester Yacht Club.
Yes, so the designated community fund, the Chester Yacht Club would like to request their second draw from the funds in the amount of $61,900.
We had already,
So again, this is money that, yes, that is held in the accounts for them.
yeah,
So we just need a motion.
motions moved by Tom, seconded by Sharon. Discussion, all those in favor? Opposed, motion's carried. Tariffs and procurement, I've mentioned that a couple times, I just, I don't know if we want to do anything about it, if we want to. Well, it's just, there's municipal units, the province, all kinds of people who are just not purchasing and service from US companies. They're doing it from Canadian companies. And, I don't know, I don't know precisely what we do. If you already have contracts like that are in place, there's not much you can do about that. But if we're moving forward, like I know we're gonna be, putting out a tender for the compactor, do we want to limit it to Canadian companies or do we not? Those are the questions. Yeah, oh, sorry, Andre.
I sit on the board of Consulting Engineers Nova Scotia, which is now ACEC Nova Scotia. And, it's a hazy kind of environment to think about, like, for example, in terms of procuring services. If you, let's say we were to want to procure engineering services, some of the services we might want to procure they have local offices, but their headquarters are in some other country. Who knows, maybe in the US. So, at what point do you just draw the distinction between what's local and what's not local? If you purchase a pickup truck, are you purchasing it from the local dealership, or are you purchasing a truck that's manufactured in the USA? So I think that, it's not a decision that this council should flippantly make. I think that if we're interested in exploring it, we should really come back with some sort of staff discussion first and so.
I don't even know what we're currently purchasing from.
Yeah, it's just that I guess what I'm trying to say is a lot of ownership is it's fragmented.
Yeah.
And so you can't just say, let's not purchase anything from the US because at what proportion or what parts?
Yeah.
Is it just hard goods or is it services or a combination of both? And does it matter, for example?
Oh, I know, if you said you aren't gonna buy a car made in the States, half of it's made in Canada, I get that.
Yeah, so it's not such an easy question to answer, I don't think. It sounds good on
Maybe we
paper.
could see what other municipalities are doing, whether they have any particular guidelines in place.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, it's not something we should flippantly decide.
no. Okay,
Not flippantly decide, but we should always be thinking, support local. We always should, regardless of unfortunately what's happening with, Canada, United States, and, I'm sorry, let's say it, United States and Canada, let's put it in the perspective it is. Shouldn't we be supporting local contractors and, right from the get-go?
well, we do give a
Yeah, I mean, you're right, and
priority
we give a
and,
priority, so
but-
we can continue with that mandate, but maybe just be a little bit more stricter with it, I don't know, I'm just.
well, they'll come back with something maybe that'll
adopt
give us a little
policies
bit more
from other
guidelines. I
municipalities.
just know others are doing it and I hate to say, I don't have a damn clue what'll happen tomorrow because you aren't sure what'll happen in 5 hours, let alone one day. Anyway, I just thought we'd bring it up because I know others are talking about it. So that is
In camera, one in camera.
one in-camera matter. So a motion to go in camera? Second it.